Welcome to NFL Nexus. Today, we're diving into a really compelling and, let's be honest, pretty wild hypothetical scenario. I want you to picture this. The year is 2026. It's January, and the Cleveland Browns are in a total freefall. We're talking a full-blown meltdown after another losing season. They're on the hunt for a new head coach, but for some reason, all the top candidates are saying no thanks. And the reason for all this chaos? Well, it might just trace back to a single, really controversial decision they made a year earlier, a decision involving one of the biggest names in college football. Okay, let's get into this.
Now, I got to be crystal clear about this right up front. Everything we're going to talk about today is a hypothetical. This isn't a prediction, it's an exploration. This entire deep dive is built on some fascinating analysis from Stadium Rant and Athlon Sports. They've laid out this really well-reasoned argument for how a few specific choices could just, lead to a complete organizational breakdown for the Browns. It's a heck of a story.
So here's our roadmap. First, we're going to jump right into that coaching crisis in January 2026. Then we're going to hit rewind and go back to the 2025 draft to see exactly where things went sideways. From there, we'll look at the absolutely chaotic rookie seasons of the two quarterbacks at the heart of this whole thing, which of course leads us right into the quarterback conundrum. After that, a quick detour to check out a pretty surprising off-season trip to London, and we'll wrap it all up with a stark 3-year warning for the entire franchise.
All right, so let's get back to January 2026. The scene is this. The Browns have just fired head coach Kevin Stefanski after a truly disastrous 2025 season. I mean, a change had to be made, right? But here's the problem. While other teams with openings, teams like the Falcons and the Giants, they've already locked in their new leaders, Cleveland is just stuck. Their coaching search is completely spinning its wheels, and you can just feel this sense of panic starting to creep into the building.
So, who are they even looking at? Well, you've got your internal guys, like offensive coordinator Tommy Rees and defensive coordinator Jim Schwartz. And look, Schwartz is a legit defensive genius. He's got the backing of stars like Myles Garrett and Denzel Ward. But it really seems like the organization wants to bring in someone from the outside, and that's where they're hitting a wall. The search for those top external guys has, and I'm quoting the source material here, hit a skid. They're looking at guys like Todd Monken from the rival Ravens, Grant Udinski from the Jags, Nate Scheelhaase from the Rams, but the rumor, the really damning one, is that Monken would rather stay a coordinator with the Giants than take the head coaching job in Cleveland. Wow, that is a massive red flag.
And this really gets us to the absolute core question of this whole scenario. Why? Why are these top-tier coaches avoiding this job like the plague? I mean, it's a fair question. Sure, the AFC North is a meat grinder of a division, and yeah, the Browns have let's call it a checkered history of instability. But they also have a truly elite defense and a fan base that's second to none. That should be tempting for any coach, right? Well, the analysis from our sources says this isn't about the division or the past. It's about a very, very complicated problem at the most important position in all of sports: quarterback.
To really, truly understand why these coaches are so hesitant, we have to go back. We have to rewind the tape to the source of the problem itself. So let's jump in our time machine, go back to the 2025 NFL Draft, and see how the chaos of that one day created the crisis the Browns are staring down in 2026.
Okay, so let's set the scene for the 2025 Draft. The 2024 season was an absolute train wreck. The team finished 3-17 under Kevin Stefanski. Just brutal. But hey, the silver lining of being that bad is you get a really high draft pick. The Browns had a golden ticket, a top 5 pick in a draft that was loaded with quarterback talent. This was their chance, their big shot to finally find a franchise leader. And one of the biggest, most talked about names in that whole class was the high-profile QB from Colorado, Shedeur Sanders.
Now, this is where the story takes a turn from bad to just plain bizarre. With the 5th overall pick, the Browns are on the clock. Sanders is right there for the taking, and they pass. Okay, then we get to the 3rd round, pick 94. They finally grab a quarterback, but it's Dylan Gabriel from Oregon. Sanders is still on the board. Then, 2 rounds later, the 5th round, pick 144, they finally select Shedeur Sanders. Think about that. To go from being talked about as a top 5 pick to being the 144th guy selected and the 2nd quarterback taken by the same team, that's a stunning fall from grace and, frankly, a completely baffling draft strategy.
And here's the kicker. This is the key detail according to the reports we're looking at. That decision to take Sanders at 144, it apparently wasn't a consensus football decision. It was allegedly a move forced on the front office by team ownership. Now that changes everything, doesn't it? It suggests the football guys, the scouts and coaches, they preferred Dylan Gabriel, but they were overruled. You've created a conflict, a rift in the organization before either of these rookies has even put on a helmet.
And you know what? That tension from draft day,
it didn't just disappear. Oh no, it carried right over into the 2025 season. The entire year was just dominated by this clumsy, awkward two-quarterback system. It was this constant power struggle playing out on the field, the front office's guy versus the owner's guy. And the result? A chaotic, inconsistent offense, a locker room that was probably divided, and surprise, surprise, another losing season, this time finishing 5-11. It was just a failed experiment from the word go.
And this slide, man, this really lays out the ugly results of that system. Dillon Gabriel, he gets the first 6 starts and just struggles mightily, going 1-5. His numbers, as you can see, are pretty mediocre. But to his credit, he was careful with the football, only 2 interceptions. Then Shedeur Sanders takes over for 7 games. His record a little better at 3-4, and he threw for more yards per game. But here's the big flashing warning sign, the turnovers, 7 touchdowns to 9 interceptions. So, in the end, neither guy proved they were the answer, and the team was just left stuck in quarterback purgatory. Let's really zero in on that 1-5 record for Gabriel because it's a huge part of the story. That poor start is what created the opening for Sanders. As those losses just kept piling up, the fans got more and more antsy, right? They had this super high-profile rookie, a guy somewhere already calling the steal of the draft, just collecting dust on the bench. The calls for a change just got louder and louder until, finally, an injury to Gabriel forced the switch. But that's the key. It was a move born out of desperation, not some grand strategic plan.
But, and this is a huge but, when Sanders got his chance, he showed everyone his biggest flaw, turning the ball over. 9 interceptions in just 7 games. That is a ton. So while, yeah, he could move the ball down the field and put up more yards than Gabriel, he was also giving the other team the ball way too often. Those turnovers are absolute drive killers. They can just suck the life out of a team. It really proved that despite the big name and the hype, he was still a raw, late-round project who just wasn't ready to lead an NFL team.
Now, in the middle of all this offensive dysfunction and quarterback drama, there was one incredible bright spot for the Browns in 2025. Defensive end Myles Garrett. The man had a monster season. He broke the single-season sack record with 23 sacks. And this is so important because it proves the team had elite, world-class talent. The defense was playing at an all-time great level, which just makes the offense look even worse and puts an even bigger, brighter spotlight on the quarterback mess and the coaching staff's failure to get a fix.
So let's bring it all full circle. Back to that head coaching search in January 2026, the weird draft, the failed 2-quarterback experiment, the constant pressure from ownership. It all funnels down into one massive problem that's scaring away all the top coaches, the quarterback conundrum. This quote, right here from the source material, this is the whole ballgame. This explains everything. Any coach who walks in that door to interview with the Browns is basically being told, job number 1 is to make Shedeur Sanders a star. They're getting a direct mandate from ownership to make this 5th-round, turnover-prone rookie a success. And what that does is it completely strips the new coach of their power to make decisions about the single most important position on the field. This slide just lays out the dilemma perfectly. In a normal world, a new coach comes in and either gets to handpick his own quarterback in the draft or inherits a proven guy. Their fates are linked. But in this Browns scenario, no. A coach is being told, your job is to fix and develop the 144th pick in the draft, not because he's the most talented, but because the owner really likes him. For any top coaching candidate, that is a massive, career-altering risk. Your entire legacy is now tied to a player you didn't choose who hasn't proven he can play at a high level in the NFL.
Now get this. While the Browns organization is basically a 5-alarm fire back in Cleveland, scrambling to find a coach, the man at the very center of it all, Shedeur Sanders, is having a very different kind of offseason. This part of the story, which comes from Athlon Sports, is just such a surreal contrast to the mess his team is in. So instead of maybe laying low and hitting the film room, Sanders jets off on this high-profile trip to London. And he's not just a tourist, he's a VIP guest of Chelsea FC for a massive soccer match against their biggest rival, Arsenal. I mean, this is a huge sporting event over there, and Sanders is front and center, in the spotlight, building his global brand while his team is back home in chaos. And he got the whole VIP package. They even presented him with a custom Chelsea jersey, a kit, as they call it, with his name and number on the back. The club was posting about it on their social media, an American football player getting love from a global soccer giant. So while the Browns are desperately trying to figure out who their next leader is, Sanders is halfway across the world being treated like an international superstar. It just adds this whole other layer of complexity to the situation, right? He isn't just another player, he's a celebrity.
And all of this brings us to our final section, and really the sobering conclusion of this whole analysis. When you put it all together, the ownership mandate,
the on-field struggles, the quarterback's celebrity status, you get a situation that leads to a very, very bleak prediction for whoever is desperate enough to actually take the Browns' head coaching job.
Let's just state the bottom line as clearly as possible. Being an NFL head coach is an incredibly difficult job with a very short shelf life. Voluntarily tying your entire career, your reputation, your legacy to the forced development of a fifth-round quarterback, no matter how famous he is a gigantic gamble. And it's a gamble that, as we're seeing in this scenario, most top coaches simply are not willing to take. And here it is, the final, chilling prediction from that Stadium Rant article. It is just such a powerful warning. The analysis concludes that this situation is basically designed to fail. The owner's demands are going to clash with the reality of what's happening on the field, and guess who's going to take the fall? The coach. The advice to get a big buyout clause essentially means get your money up front because the end is coming and it's coming soon. The Browns will be right back here looking for another new coach in just a few short years.
So there you have it, the breakdown of this potential chaotic future for the Cleveland Browns. It's a pretty wild look at how one single controversial draft pick could send shockwaves through an entire organization. So what do you think? Is this a plausible scenario? Do you believe one player's situation can really hold a head coaching search hostage and dictate the fate of a franchise? Let us know what you think down in the comments below. We really do read them all. And hey, if you enjoyed this deep dive, do us a huge favor and hit that like button and subscribe to NFL Nexus for more content just like this. And you can also help support the channel by purchasing our coloring books. They are perfect for kids, grandkids, even adults. You can find the link in the description or just scan the QR code right there on your screen. Thanks for watching.